In this lecture, I'd like to spend a little time talking about the length and time scales that you can measure with X-ray and neutron scattering. So you're all aware, of course, of how you normally see objects. Let me just find a laser pointer here. For large objects like a house or a tennis ball or something like that, we see images of them which are created by visible light, which is here in this ruler of different wavelengths of radiation. And of course, we normally think of this whole subject in terms of geometric optics, where we draw rays of light which illuminate an object and are then diffusely scattered and into our eyes or into a camera, and using lenses produce an image of the thing that we're trying to look at. This works all the while that the radiation wavelength is very small compared to the size of the object that it is that we're trying to look at. But as we get down to smaller and smaller objects, for example, proteins or small molecules, we can't produce images of that sort, and we have to resort to other ways to get information about the object of interest by scattering radiation from it. And in that case, rather than using direct imaging, what we do is we use diffraction methods. But before we talk about diffraction at all, let's just look at objects which are imaged by radiation in the same way as we would focus it and produce pictures with our eyes. These are radiographs actually produced with neutrons, which is a technique which is very similar to the radiographs that you get produced of your teeth when you go to the dentist. That is to say, the radiation passes through the object in question and is absorbed differentially by different parts of the object. In the case of your teeth, of course, bone and the flesh around the bone. And in this case, what's happened is that they've imaged this object from various directions, a process called tomography, and then using the absorption of the radiation in different directions through the object, they're able to reconstruct the object. In this case, it's an electric motor, and in the computer, they have taken out the container inside which this electric motor exists. So if you were to look at this electric motor in real life, you'd just see a container. You wouldn't see the guts of it. With neutrons, you can do this type of radiography down to size scales of the order of 10 microns. You can do it to much better resolution than that. In other words, smaller length scales with X-rays, basically because X-ray sources are much brighter and much better collimated. But down to objects of order some number of microns, you can do direct imaging using radiation. So as I said a couple of view graphs ago, for length scales less than 10 microns for neutrons or less than a micron for X-rays, we have to resort to doing diffraction measurements, and you see the various types of things that we could do diffraction from or imaging of on this view graph. So all of the diffraction phenomena that you will encounter in this school can really be understood in terms of this experiment that I'm sure all of you did as undergraduates, called the Young's two-slit experiment. And let's just go through that again in case you've forgotten it because it's too long ago. So you start off with a screen, this black thing here, with two slits in it, which are small, micron size, separated by some distance, which is usually millimeter or sub-millimeter. And you irradiate the whole thing with plane waves of light, produced usually by a laser. And you get light, of course, coming out on this side. And if you let that light go, what you find on the other, far away from this slit, generally on the other side of the auditorium, if you're doing it in an experiment in your class, will be a pattern like this, a series of fringes, which of course are arranged vertically if your two slits are in this orientation. And so on the screen you see a pattern of intensity that looks like this, where the intensity is measured left to right and its position on the screen is measured up and down. And to understand that, as you remember, the way we do that is that we look at the path length between this first slit here and the screen, and the path length between this slit S2 and the screen, and we take the difference, and if that difference is an integral number of wavelengths of the light that we're using, then we get a peak of intensity. And so that criterion turns out to come down to this, that if the d, which is the separation of the slits, times sine theta, which is the sine of the scattering angle, is equal to some integer times the wavelength of the radiation, then you get a bright spot. There's one important thing that I want to warn you about on this view graph. In almost everything you will see subsequently in this school, the scattering angle, that is the angle between the incident radiation, which in this case is coming perpendicular to the screen, and the scattered radiation, so this angle here is called the scattering angle. We do not, in X-ray and neutron crystallography, usually designate that as theta. We designate it as 2 theta for reasons that you'll probably see during Efren's lecture tomorrow. But be careful of that one because you'll see that this equation, which will become Bragg's law for X-ray and neutron diffraction, isn't quite the same. But the physics of how we get there is the same as for this Young's 2-slit experiment. So you can see in this view graph a number of different techniques. Here in the middle are neutrons and X-rays, and then we have other techniques above and below it. And along this axis here, the x-axis, we have the length scale that can be measured. So this, I think, is 10 to the 7th, and if that's in angstroms, that means a centimeter. And down here, we're in the sub-angstrom scale. And you can see that with neutrons or X-rays, you can do imaging for large length scales down to, as we said, 10 or 1 micron in the case of X-rays. If you want to measure structures that are a bit larger, you have to resort to these techniques called small angle neutron scattering or small angle X-ray scattering. Some of you may already have done that. If you want interatomic distances in crystalline materials, you use neutron or X-ray diffraction. An important thing that you get from this view graph is that there are other characterization techniques which cover similar length scales. And it is, of course, true that neutrons and X-rays are quite expensive to use because you have to go to a major facility. So if you can get away with doing microscopy or AFM in your lab rather than doing one of these two techniques, then that's probably the way you should at least start out. So there are considerable overlap between the length scales. There's a complementarity because of different element specificity, and we'll see that in a minute. And very different sample sizes are used for these different techniques. So the amount of sample that you have also will be important. Some techniques, like what we've seen with neutron imaging and with microscopy, give pictures, images. And so, for example, if we had something like this, imagine that this is a solution of a colloid. It's a suspension of small particles in water, for example. So what you can see is the small particles. This is a picture. It's an image of that sample. Below that, you see what you would see if you did a small angle scattering experiment from that material. You see intensity plotted vertically, and horizontally you see essentially the probability of a particular distance between the pairs of particles occurring. So you can see, because there's a peak in this picture, there is a most probable distance between particles. And you can sort of see that in this picture. But the information you're getting from diffraction is different from this image. It's statistical information about the whole sample. The same sort of argument applies to timescales, so for dynamic motion. So again, along this x-axis here, you'll see length scales. So here you go from 1 nanometer down to hundredths of a nanometer, and then up over here to micron-like length scales. On the bottom here is a scale that you'll get used to pretty soon, which is the wave vector scale. And this thing here, Q, is called the scattering wave vector, and is basically 2 pi divided by the distance that you will be measuring in your sample. Vertically here, we plotted the time scale of the dynamics, so I'll put it over here, the time scale of the dynamics in picoseconds, and you can see the numbers here. And those time scales correspond to energy changes that occur in the scattered radiation. And so you can see this energy changes over here in milli-electron volts. And what you can see is, again, there's this complementarity of different techniques, and each one of these techniques is moving its zone of applicability in the direction of these arrows. Here you can see what we can currently do with neutron scattering. Actually, currently is probably wrong, because this view graph was produced over 10 years ago, and so very likely the time scale has gone down, and the distance scale would have gone up somewhat.